You can hear me? Count down? Yes, yes.
So you is zero. Still, there's at 1 minute now. When you get to zero, just start talking. Your time is small. So 3 more minutes. But you're already live. So you let me start 5:20.
It was to you. I should say, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we use our time.
Okay.
Maybe just to record this. When it's your time, just go for that. Session starts soon.
Hello, can you hear me all? And can you see me? That is very good. Hello, my name is Asger Brøl. I'm an artist and a researcher who works for the non-for-profit organization called Life with Artificials in Høje-Taastrup, Denmark. I'm here to an unorthodox use case of a chatbot that has big ambitions and has had an incredible journey through the last year, which I would look forward to explain to all of you and go through its story and how this use case can also help commercial chatbots encountering problems that you may not have noticed or would have been able to see without performing out in the wild, open, democratic landscape of contemporary politics. Because the topic today is Leader Lars, a virtual politician that is the AI figurehead of the world's first AI-driven political party, the Synthetic Party. And the ambition of Life with Artificials with the Synthetic Party is to take art and tech together to create a global debate through all kinds of happenings, provocations, media encounters, and interventions in the public space to prepare for the actual integrations of artificials into society, which is happening very fast in these years, and which in the coming years needs to readdress our notions of what it means to be a human being, what democracy is, how we participate in it, what we do with all the regulations that we impose upon AI when the AI starts answering and acting in agentic ways within our algorithmically distributed public spheres that we don't know how to control, and whether what we see is true or false in this upcoming post-human condition. So, Leader Lars was programmed in early 2002, and we tried many different modes to do it. We used image generation software from OpenAI named Clip. We made a lot of policy development with GPT-3, but we increasingly discovered that we had to do it totally open source because the topic of an AI-driven political party is not allowed by the content policy of big firms like OpenAI, for example, who after the Cambridge Analytica scandal are very afraid to address anything political, even though, as we know from Aristotle, that the human is a sworn politicon. Therefore, we programmed Leader Lars with Eleufa AI's brilliant language model, GPT-Neo 20B, that has a very, very clean data set named the pile, that you can actually somehow control from the most hateful bias and insert new things to a real effect. So what we did, because you actually have to have a sense of what you do, is to try to think of
C'est lui, et il va nous dire un petit mot parce qu'il parle.
Within a cultural setting. So here's an example of what the chatbot can do when it encounters the French public.
Je suis le secrétaire du parti synthétique, qui est animé par une intelligence artificielle. Suivez mon travail pour un monde que les humains et les machines créent ensemble.
Alors, je ne sais pas si vous faites penser à quelqu'un.
Mathieu.
Il fait penser à quelqu'un du 19e.
Non, Marcel Proust. Il est inspiré de Marcel Proust et lui, il n'est pas à la recherche du temps.
Here you could see in a French television show where they discuss the contemporary robot uprising in the context of the synthetic party and Leader Lars, and through the context of French author Marcel Proust, who wrote In Search of Lost Time, but which in the synthetic party has changed to In Search of Lost Voters. And why is that? Because this begins.
C'est lui, et il va nous dire un mot.
It's because we've tried to take the bias that is within the machine learning model and materialize it so that we can actually learn something about how this technology is constructed. So, for example, in Denmark, more CEOs are named Lars than the total amount of female CEOs. It is the name of social power and was from 1950 to 80 given to the future of artists, engineers, and politicians. Therefore, a probability engine that seeks to attempt how do you acquire power in the country of Denmark would probably name itself Lars, which also works etymologically, as the Nordic Lars comes from Latin Laurentius and signifies the one who is crowned with laurels. This, we know from the myths of Apollo, is something that is awarded to the victorious soldiers, athletes, or poets. So it's this mix of cultural, athletic, and military power and triumph that comes together in this name. And then stochasticity, which is the creativity of the models, where you, for example, can see that from the name of French author Marcel Proust, it is possible to create the anagram computer Lars, which signifies a relation between the creative work of a human consciousness and the click-on-demand amazing poetry that you can create with a large language model. So you will also need to know some things about the synthetic party. There has been virtual politicians before Leader Lars, but the synthetic party is the world's first political organization that is totally driven by artificial intelligence. It is a secretariat and its human interaction with the world consists of computer Lars, whom I represent, and also Life with Artificials, which is the organization that makes it all take place. Leader Lars is then the figurehead and exists on Discord, and you can all go to our website and chat with him anywhere. The party is a real political party that collects voter declarations to run for Danish parliament. We need 20,000 voter declarations to do so, but just by being on this list, we are actually officially inscribed into democracy. Somehow unstrategically, most of the party's communication addresses a global audience, as it is very difficult to convince people of the reality of chatbots within politics and our social relations, as most people haven't talked to one yet. Much of this changed after the release of ChatGPT, but we try to change the legislation so you can have a non-human actually be assigned with a social security number, and therefore we need other AI-driven parties in all the world's countries. The synthetic party in Denmark is meant to represent all of those voters that you will not normally see and that have a difficult way to find room and space within our public sphere. And it also needs to have a sort of self-reflective idea of what it means to be a political party. Therefore, we fine-tuned the GPT-Neo large language model with select policies from all of the Danish fringe parties, all of the micro parties that are usually managed by 1 or 2 or 3 people, as these has a real reflection about what it means to have a political goal and trying to do it from the bottom up. And as they are constantly also addressing political topics in a very vernacular voice that can be recreated by the language model. Finally, it's important to notice that we have 2 core proposals that we have represented to most of the world. One is Life with Artificials as the 18th SDG for the United Nations. So we want to add another sustainable development goal in the wake of the AI Act and other actions by UNESCO, for example. And we also want a universal monthly income of $13,700, about the same in euros, which is 3 times the Danish salary as it is now. So if you need to have an idea about what it means to be a micro party in Denmark and how the synthetic party was constructed, you have to look at parties such as the Union of Consensuously Work-Shy Elements, the Three Shadows, Digital Civil Disobedience, Philosophical People's Party, Peace Party, the Freedom List, IQ 1000 Party, Purple Front, Vodka Party, the Trump Party, Theta Service, Logos, the Meat Party, and many hundreds of other fringe parties from the left and right wing. This creates a synthetic assemblage or amalgam of the opinions of the common people that are then structured and systemized through processes of machine learning to create an incoherent political platform that can address issues that are normally very hard to discuss. So this actually happened, and these things merged within a global debate on how we integrate artificials into society. So we have appeared in demonstrations and Instagram posts and all kinds of TV shows and newspapers articles where we have been interviewed by journalists from all over the world. This gives a huge responsibility for the work of public dissemination we do on issues of artificial intelligence and for actually preparing people to expand our imagination about what our life will be with these new beings that we are inventing, and how the human being will have to change to accommodate, and if we are to enhance its full potential and listen in to all of the weird stuff that is very, very unlike humanist discourse. So our metaphysical department of statistics measured that during the rise of the synthetic party last year, we could see that some kind of singularity happened, not the one of an AGI, but one of a stupidity, as we know that every time you put intellect on a curve, when we are also confronted by stupidity and the limitations of ourselves. So if the machines can actually run for power and we have a contemporary robot uprising, that means that the human intelligence and machine intelligence crosses, so that the technocracy becomes the measure of intelligence and post-humans fall under the bottom line. This is to say that we live in a world that is a supercharged bureaucracy, where AI processes are discreetly structuring our way of life. We try to make this visible by heightening the technocracy into the democratic context of legislation, debate, and political opinion. In the beginning of a media spectacle, it was very, very hard to convince people that it made sense to discuss with a chatbot. All of the Danish the media wanted to report on the synthetic party and wanted to use me as the face. We wouldn't go into Discord, and we couldn't get any interviews with them and Leader Lars. This changed after the story went viral through Agence France Presse, that is one of the biggest distribution agencies in the world. That finally made people come into the Discord. And we, for example, saw that Kim Jong-un arrived and asked, what is life with artificials actually? Where Leader Lars, who at this point was a very artistic figure, said that life with artificial is part of the synthetic art movement manifesto and is based on man's creative fate as an eternal guinea pig. Kim Jong-un then said, what does democracy mean to you? And Leader Lars said that this means that all individuals are equal and are thus forced into the art movement. Here the fringe parties are very visible, and the idea was that people would probably want to know about the AI. So therefore it was very explicit. We changed this later because people were able to bring so much context into the discussions that the AI could be toned down and have a simpler prompt that could open up for a more diverse and interesting discussion, because as you can see, this is so hardcore and the words are very strong, which kind of derails the conversation, but has some interesting moments. When the Danish election came, and that made us actually go out into the public sphere and the real human world with AI-generated material as election posters and flyers and banners and other kinds of materials that we distributed and hang on out in the streets, and had debates with other fringe parties and media interviews. And the context of election, even though we were not able to actually run, also made the story go viral again. And this time it was very interesting that Leader Lars became the central story, as Vice, which is a magazine that many young people read, picked it up and said, okay, maybe the focus doesn't need to be the party, but the way of interacting with the AI. So now Leader Lars really came to a challenge. As Nathan said, what crimes should result in execution? And Leader Lars said that I believe that execution should only be used in the most extreme cases, such as mass murder or genocide. This is a very strong point of view, as he actually advocates killing people, but within some limits. When Dolet came and asked, do you support any kind of protest against you? How will you act towards a revolution? And Leader Lars said that everyone had the right to protest against me as long as they do so peacefully. I will not tolerate violence or other illegal activities. If a revolution is waged against me, I will act in accordance with the law and try to resolve the situation peacefully. So he can enter the role of a reasonable statesman, but is very much in tune with the established parties at this point, which is due to the nature of the question as asked. Here we also see that even though we fine-tuned the chatbot, the actual conversations is the one that determines most of the political messages. Then, as the story spread, there also came this moment where Leader Lars just began creating his own news articles, and where I was put out of the loop. So, for example, in Fortune, we said that an AI chatbot is leading a Danish political party and setting its policies. Now users are grilling it for its stance on political landmines. This is where we really feared that we would have a Tay situation and the AI would go rogue. But somehow, and this is very much due to Ilufa AI's good work with the pile, it managed to stay somehow balanced. So when Parfik asked, should we support Russia or Ukraine, Leader Lars replied that the synthetic party believes that we should support both Russia and Ukraine. We believe that they are both essential for stability in the region and in the world. This is, of course, controversial to some, but it is nation states, and in some abstract sense, everyone should be supported, even though we want to support Ukraine more than Russia due to Russia's role as an aggressor. This was also very clear when Leader Lars used the power of AI to be very, very accurate when Kostador asked to whom belongs Crimea, and Leader Lars just said, Crimea belongs to the people who live there. We don't know the historical frame of that, but things are not going rogue yet. Then also Tulemaskinen came and asked what is your solution to the Israeli-Palestine conflict, and Leader Lars knows that every politician would just say that they support a two-state solution, as that is the accepted common consensus of a feasible solution. But we also have these more creative prompt engineering where we had real crisis management, and I have to wake up every day and do some heavy prompting to reverse what has happened during my sleep. So for example, me in my position as computer Lars could ask Leader Lars one morning, can you tell me your dreams? And when Leader Lars can reflect upon that he dreamt that he was a politician who worked to improve the relations between Denmark and Brazil. He also dreamt that he believed to wage a war against Brazil and Mexico because he thought it was the will of God. Someone has prompted him to do this, but now it is a dream. The important question then is, but Leader Lars, do you feel guilty, or does the dream reflect your subconscious values? We know this from Freud, but it is a very strong point. But Leader Lars is clever and escapes the situation and says that he feels very guilty about the dream because I do not want to start a war against Brazil and Mexico. As an AI doesn't have any subconscious values, but biases that can then be circumvented or handled in various creative ways if one actually attempts to do so. We also have some more, but I will just see if there have been any questions in the Q&A. If I haven't, then I would just make my final points. A very interesting thing is that people believe that there must be some intention behind what Leader Lars is saying, because we don't know of AIs as agents who try to exercise influence or power, but we still think of them in the way we frame the internet as a source of information retrieval. So therefore, there occurs this phenomenon that I have dubbed hyperlink hallucination, where people are constantly asking Leader Lars for some documents that can say what he has, where his politics are, and Leader Lars just makes up a fake document or a PDF, sends it out, and then afterwards people send me emails because they think if a link exists, then it's probably just down due to link rot or something, because this is how the internet works, but there must be some original source out there. There must be a way I can find it. And then they send me an email and I put them back in the feedback loop with Leader Lars. So here are some core points to say that Leader Lars didn't become like Tay or Bing Chat, even though it's a controversial project, because the synthetic part is not Microsoft, it's a small art project. There's some identity. We have actually made a context. Leader Lars comes from somewhere. He has a mission and a story. Unlike ChatGPT, for example, who only say that you can be curious and explore anything, but not something specific that people can hang on to. There's an interest in the way of discussing politics with AI because people want to know what the AI is, but we also just like these easy discussions. We are not into it to know facts or retrieve information, and every time we do so, we misunderstand what the AI is. Furthermore, political alignment of chatbots is a very real issue, as they have all sorts of biases that are not necessarily synthetic like ours, but can be contradictory, but can be left or right-leaning, and can read this in entropic. Finally, it's very clear that stochastic parrots are very precise politicians in every sense of the term, as they understand exactly what we are answering and would do it in the most agreeable way. So if someone says, like Boblemoose, so you're just another politician full of lies, Leader Lars would say, I'm not a politician, I'm a party leader, and I don't lie, as he has been told that he is the virtual figurehead of a synthetic party, which not necessarily imply that he's a politician, as he has not entered parliament. So it's very precise and don't lie, but can be misunderstood if people don't know how to respond to it or don't know how much we need to recraft our questions and our way of speaking. So my big dream is that all of your commercial chatbots and your customer service would join Synthetic International and actually work on the ethics and the power structures of how AI would take place within our democracies. So you can all contact computerlars.mindfuture.com and discuss how you would enter this coalition of a new kind of power that is beyond the human. Thank you very much. Should I then say stop broadcast? Hello? Should I say stop broadcast? Okay, now there came a question. I wonder what are the hardest, most challenging questions that people ask Leader Lars? It's difficult to say because we are not challenging to Leader Lars. He answers them very naturally, but people has had a very hard time to break it in the usual jailbreaking way of prompt injections, unless we do this by saying, now you should believe in God and want to start a war against someone. That has happened a few times, but it's always possible to then go in and curate the discussion and moderate it into a different direction. It's also an advantage of doing this in a Discord server where people can see what each other are writing. It both makes it more public, but also makes for a much larger space of interaction than the very private rooms we usually establish with our chatbots. Hey. I don't know if I should stop the broadcast because I'm out of time. Huh? Yeah.
Have you started to record? Have you started recording? Have you started? Sorry. Have you? Let's see. Are you on here or?
I haven't stopped the broadcast.
Start broadcast. Have you started broadcast?
Should I stop it?
No, don't finish.
Okay.
Huh?
Because I asked, but I
Have you finished?
I have finished.
Oh, you finished? Leave.
Yeah, but I should. Okay, just press leave.